Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Heinrich and I'm the real nuclear physicist. In today's video we'll be taking a look at one of the most ridiculous theories out there, and that is flat earth. The video in question will be Eric Dubay's 200 proof that the earth is not a spinning ball.
200 proofs Earth is not a spinning ball by Eric Dubay. 1. The horizon always appears perfectly flat 360 degrees around the observer, regardless of altitude. All amateur balloon, rocket, plane, and drone footage show a completely flat horizon over 20 plus miles high. Only NASA and other government space agencies show curvature in their fake CGI photos and videos.
The fact that the horizon always appears flat is actually lazy thinking. If you would have gone high enough, you would have seen that the Earth curves. In fact, here are a few examples taken from the International Space Station. And I know you're going to say it's fisheye lenses, but look closely, there's subjects in the foreground that aren't even distorted, which would have happened if it was a fisheye lens. And by the looks of some of your videos, you're the one using fisheye lenses. If you look at the video that you showed, sometimes the Earth is flat, sometimes it's curved, and sometimes it's even convex. I mean, come on, who would believe a convex Earth theory?
2. The horizon always rises to the eye level of the observer as altitude is gained, so you never have to look down to see it. If Earth were in fact a globe, no matter how large, as you ascended, the horizon would stay fixed, and the observer or camera would have to tilt, looking down further and further to see it.
Now, Eric, you say that the horizon would always rise to eye level. In fact, that's actually an untrue claim. Flat Earth, not flat Earth, spherical Earth, the horizon won't rise to eye level. Sure, if the Earth was flat, it would be much less than what it is on the round Earth. But to be honest, there's quite a lot of experiments that you can do at home at different altitudes so that you can actually see the horizon is not always at eye level. In fact, in an aeroplane, there's instruments that show the actual horizon versus the altitude of the aeroplane. So once again, you say something, but it's just words. It's not true.
3. The natural physics of water is to find and maintain its level. If Earth were a giant sphere, tilted, wobbling, and hurtling through infinite space, then truly flat, consistently level surfaces would not exist here. But since Earth is in fact an extended flat plane, this fundamental physical property of fluids, finding and remaining level, is consistent with experience and common sense.
On the fact that water finds its own level, yes, it does. You can test it. But the thing is, the level that you think of does not necessarily mean flat. It means that at a certain point, all those points are at the same height above sea level. So if you take 2 points a meter apart and you measure them 100 meters from sea level, yes, they are level. You can put a spirit level across and they are level. Now, if you do that 10 meters apart all across the globe and you measure each one of them next to each other, all of them will be level. But the thing is, on the opposite sides of the globe, they won't appear level, but they are still at the same height above sea level.
4. Rivers run down to sea level, finding the easiest course, north, south, east, west, and all other intermediary directions over the Earth at the same time. If Earth were truly a spinning ball, then many of these rivers would be impossibly flowing uphill. For example, the Mississippi in its 3,000 miles would have to ascend 11 miles before reaching the Gulf of Mexico.
Rivers running uphill, I mean, come on, you can't really believe that. If you look at what the Earth is You think of it as a hill, you're standing on this edge, somebody else is standing on that edge, and the river has to run over the hill. But it's the same concept. It's altitude, so it's height above sea level. Yes, the mountains, high above sea level. Ocean, sea level. So gravity pulls the water from high above sea level towards the ocean. Not on a flat plane, but rather on a sphere closest to its center. Take a look at this picture. This shows exactly what I mean about what you think the Earth curve should be, and that is not what it is.
5. One portion of the Nile River flows for 1,000 miles with a fall of only 1 foot. Parts of the West African Congo, according to the supposed inclination and movement of the ball earth, would be sometimes running uphill and sometimes down. This would also be the case for the Parana, Paraguay, and other long rivers.
So Eric, proof 5 is just a reword of proof 4. And once again, I don't think you understand the difference between elevation and curvature. So just like the example previous, the Nile River would curve with the Earth, like it does. Whereas you think if the Earth is curved, the Nile should run up and down, which would make a mountain in the middle. That is not how the Earth curve works, because we have gravity.
6. If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, as NASA and modern astronomy claim, spherical trigonometry dictates the surface of all standing water must curve downward an easily measurable 8 inches per mile multiplied by the square of the distance. This means along a 6-mile channel of standing water, the Earth would dip 6 feet on either end from the central peak. Every time such experiments have been conducted, however, standing water has proven to be perfectly level.
Really, Eric? And these photos? Like you can see in all of them, over a long distance of water, all of these structures somehow curve away from you. And I can assure you that it's nothing to do with perspective.
7. Surveyors, engineers, and architects are never required to factor the supposed curvature of the Earth into their projects. Canals, railways, bridges, and tunnels, for example, are always cut and laid horizontally, often over hundreds of miles, without any allowance for curvature.
Eric, this is an outright lie. Sure, engineers don't use Earth curve for small-scale projects like buildings and stuff like that, because the distances are just too small. But for large projects, sure, long bridges, yes, they have to take it into account. In fact, I'll put some links in the description, and you can go and have a look at them, where engineers take the Earth curve into account.
8. The Suez Canal, connecting the Mediterranean with the Red Sea, is 100 miles long, without any locks, making the water an uninterrupted continuation of the two seas. When constructed, the Earth's supposed curvature was not taken into account. It was dug along a horizontal datum line 26 feet below sea level, passing through several lakes from one sea to the other, with the datum line and the water's surface running perfectly parallel over the 100 miles.
Eric, this proof just brings us back to proof 4 and 5, where we looked at the rivers in the Nile River. Sure, you think there should be a big bulge in the middle that the river should flow over. But just remember, in reality, down is the direction that gravity pulls. And on the sphere, down is towards its center.
9. Engineer W. Winkler was published in the Earth Review regarding the Earth's supposed curvature, stating, "As an engineer of many years' standing, I saw that this absurd allowance is only permitted in school books. no engineer would dream of allowing anything of the kind. I've projected many miles of railways and many more of canals, and the allowance has not even been thought of, much less allowed for. This allowance for curvature means this, that it is 8 inches for the first mile of a canal, and increasing at the ratio by the square of the distance in miles. Thus, a small navigable canal for boats, say 30 miles long, will have, by the above rule, an allowance for curvature of 600 feet. Think of that, and then please credit engineers as not being quite such fools. Nothing of the sort is allowed. We no more think of allowing 600 feet for a line of 30 miles of railway or canal than of wasting our time trying to square the circle.
First of all, Eric, something that an engineer wrote in a book more than 100 years ago is a historical opinion, and it's not a proof. So I think if your best testimony comes from 1893, then you should probably look into some more recent studies. In fact, almost every engineering and surveying book for large projects takes the earth curve into account. And this also goes back to the rivers proof. Level is the same height above the sea level. It does not mean flat, straight across on a plane. It's not a ball with a flat line going out. It's a ball all the way around with the same height. And then also just another thing, I looked into finding this so-called Earth Review book and I couldn't find anything. So it's probably not a credible publication. What I did find, however, is this quote is in Earth, Not a Spinning Ball Review. And it's a publication from somebody that was a follower of Samuel Rowbotham. So it's quite shocking that it wasn't even a peer-reviewed publication.
10. The London and North Western Railway forms a straight line, 180 miles long, between London and Liverpool. The railroad's highest point, midway at Birmingham Station, is only 250 feet above sea level. If the world were actually a globe, however, curving 8 inches per mile squared, the 180-mile stretch of rail would form an arc, with the center point at Birmingham raising over a mile, a full 5,400 feet above London and Liverpool.
Eric, if you're going to keep repeating proofs like this, you should probably rename the video to 4 proofs the Earth is not a spinning ball. Because I mean, this is once again a rewording of the previous proof, which is basically just a rewording of the rivers proof. So we're not on a good track record right now. Sea level around this sphere is always around this sphere. It's not a line straight through and it makes a mountain. That's not how spherical geometry works.
11. A surveyor and engineer of 30 years, published in the Birmingham Weekly Mercury, stated, "I am thoroughly acquainted with the theory and practice of civil engineering. However bigoted some of our professors may be in the theory of surveying according to the prescribed rules, yet it is well known among us that such theoretical measurements are incapable of any practical illustration. All our locomotives are designed to run on what may be regarded as true levels, or flats. There are, of course, partial inclines or gradients here and there, but they are always accurately defined and must be carefully traversed. But anything approaching to 8 inches in the mile, increasing as the square of the distance, could not be worked by any engine that was ever yet constructed. Taking one station with another, all over England and Scotland, it may be stated that all the platforms are on the same relative level. The distance between eastern and western coasts of England may be set down as 300 miles. If the prescribed curvature was indeed as represented, the central stations at Rugby or Warwick ought to be close upon 3 miles higher than a cord drawn from the 2 extremities. If such was the case, there is not a driver or stoker within the kingdom that would be found to take charge of the train. We can only laugh at those of your readers who seriously give us credit for such venturesome exploits as running trains round spherical curves. Horizontal curves on levels are dangerous enough. Vertical curves would be 1,000 times worse, and with our rolling stock, constructed as at present, physically impossible.
Eric, you see what I mean? Once again, it's a railway proof. Same as the previous one, same as the previous one. So just see what I said there and then come back to the next one.
12. The Manchester Ship Canal Company, published in the Earth Review, stated, "It is customary in railway and canal constructions for all levels to be referred to a datum which is nominally horizontal and is so shown on all sections. It is not in the practice in laying out public works to make allowances for the curvature of the earth."
Eric, you see, another one. Another railway, another canal, just another rewording. Like I said, just go see my other debunkings. I'm not going to repeat myself.
13. In a 19th century French experiment by MMBO and Arago, a powerful lamp with good reflectors was placed on the summit of Deserto del Palmas in Spain, and able to be seen all the way from Campri on the island of Ibiza. Since the elevation of the 2 points were identical, and the distance between covered nearly 100 miles, if Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, the light should have been more than 6,600 feet, 1.25 miles, below the line of sight.
Again, Eric, you use experiments and proofs more than 100 years old. You have to say something that you can't find a recent experiment that shows this. In fact, some of the flat earthers tried this experiment, and what did they find? They found that it wasn't flat. The earth, in fact, is a globe. And I also think you don't understand geometry. Take a look at this picture. Now, if you do the correct calculations, you'll find that you're more than able to see the lamp in the experiment. But if we look at details of the experiment and trying to replicate it today, it's quite difficult. If we use the information of the experiment today, we can do the calculations and see that we would be able to see the lamp. But if we go and have a look at the data that you gave us, in fact, there is no place called Campri on Ibiza, and there's no place on Ibiza with identical elevation. So if we took the highest peak on Ibiza, which is 1,500 feet above sea level, and if we take the Deserto Las Palmas, is 2,300 feet above sea level, we would get that you'd be able to see the peak of the mountain, as it would only be obscured by 1,000 feet.
14. The Lieutenant Colonel Portlock experiment used oxyhydrogen Drummond's lights and heliostats to reflect the sun's rays across stations set up across 108 miles of St. George's Channel. If the Earth were actually a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, Portlock's light should have remained hidden under 1.5 miles of curvature.
Eric, once again you repeat one of your proofs. So just go look at proof number 13's debunking, and then we can carry on to number 15. Thanks.
15. If the Earth were truly a sphere 25,000 miles in circumference, airplane pilots would have to constantly correct their altitudes downwards so as to not fly straight off into outer space. A pilot wishing to simply maintain their altitude at a typical cruising speed of 500 miles per hour would have to constantly dip their nose downwards and descend 2,777 feet, over 0.5 mile, every minute. Otherwise, without compensation, in 1 hour's time, the pilot would find themselves 31.5 miles higher than expected.
Eric, this is a false fact. You think on a spherical Earth, if a plane stayed at the same altitude, it would fly straight off. That's not true. That's not reality. Altitude, once again, is above sea level. If the plane stays at the same altitude, it goes around. So now, how does the plane maintain that altitude? With lift. Gravity pulls it down, lift brings it up. So as gravity pulls it down, the lift needs to be increased to maintain the altitude. If you decrease lift, you go down, increase lift, you go up. And once again, up and down is towards the center of Earth or away from the center of Earth.
16. The experiment known as Airy's failure proved that the stars move relative to a stationary Earth, and not the other way around. By first filling a telescope with water to slow down the speed of light inside, then calculating the tilt necessary to get the starlight directly down the tube, Airy failed to prove the heliocentric theory, since the starlight was already coming in the correct angle, with no change necessary, and instead proved the geocentric model correct.
Eric, you quote this experiment's result out of context, so that you can deceive people to thinking the Earth is flat and they couldn't prove that the Earth was a spinning round sphere. Where in actuality is the experiment tried to prove the existence of ether, which was the medium that we thought light would propagate through, as we looked at light as a wave and we did not know about the wave-particle duality. The results of the experiment could only explain two things. Either the ether does not exist, or the ether exists, but the Earth is stationary. And like we know today, there is no ether, which means the Earth is not stationary. And if the Earth is not stationary, it can't be a flat, stationary plane.
17. Olber's paradox states that if there were billions of stars, which are suns, the night sky would be filled completely with light. As Edgar Allan Poe said, "Were the succession of stars endless, then the background of the sky would present as a uniform luminosity."
Quoting Edgar Allan Poe, who wasn't a physicist nor an astronomer, just an author, really isn't doing you any good. The reason we can't see a million billion stars and the night sky isn't lit up like a Christmas tree is due to the expanding universe and red light shift. So how about looking into that a bit, Eric?
18. The Michelson-Morley and Sagnac experiments attempted to measure the change in speed of light due to Earth's assumed motion through space. After measuring in every possible different direction in various locations, they failed to detect any significant change whatsoever, again proving the stationary geocentric model.
Eric, Michelson-Morley had nothing to do to prove that the Earth was in motion. In fact, by that time it was already established that the Earth indeed was in motion, and the experiment was set out to find the medium through which light travels, because at that stage light was a wave, particle duality wasn't a thing yet, and waves need to travel through a certain substance or a medium, and that's what they were searching for.
19. Tycho Brahe famously argued against the heliocentric theory in his time, positing that if the Earth revolved around the Sun, the change in relative position of the stars after 6 months' orbital motion could not fail to be seen. He argued that the stars should seem to separate as we approach, and come together as we recede. In actual fact, however, after 190 million miles of supposed orbit around the Sun, not a single inch of parallax can be detected in the stars.
Well, Tycho Brahe's claim is true. If we revolve around the Sun, we would notice stellar parallax. And guess what? There's something like stellar parallax. So what's this proof proving? It's proving that the Earth indeed is not flat.
20. If Earth were truly constantly spinning eastwards at over 1,000 miles per hour, vertically fired cannonballs and other projectiles should fall significantly due west. In actual fact, however, whenever this has been tested, vertically fired cannonballs shoot upwards an average of 14 seconds ascending, 14 seconds descending, and fall back to the ground no more than 2 feet away from the cannon, often directly back into the muzzle.
Claiming that vertical projectile motions would prove the Earth is flat isn't very smart. In fact, in a moving car, train, plane, whatever, you can throw a ball upwards and catch it. That's because the car, the train, the plane, and the Earth would be in constant motion. And once again, it proves a round Earth, not a flat one.
21. If the Earth were truly constantly spinning eastwards at over 1,000 miles per hour, helicopters and hot air balloons should be able to simply hover over the surface of the Earth and wait for their destinations to come to them.
Helicopters, balloons, in fact, anything that's floating, will not float away from the Earth, or will not float and the Earth rotates away from them, because they're floating in the atmosphere. And the atmosphere rotates with the Earth. Atmosphere isn't stationary and the Earth rotates inside. That's just not scientific. Debunking Eric Dubay's proof number 22.
If Earth were truly constantly spinning eastwards at over 1,000 miles per hour, during the Red Bull stratosphere dive, Felix Baumgartner, spending 3 hours ascending over New Mexico, should have landed 2,500 miles west in the Pacific Ocean.
Eric, you don't understand that the atmosphere rotates with the Earth, and accusing Red Bull that they faked the whole thing just adds another company to the entire conspiracy network that you think you've uncovered. So please, try a bit harder. Debunking Eric Dubay's proof number 23.
Ball believers often claim gravity magically and inexplicably drags the entire lower atmosphere of the Earth in perfect synchronization up to some undetermined height, where this progressively faster spinning atmosphere gives way to the non-spinning, non-gravitized, non-atmosphere of infinite vacuum space.
Eric, gravity isn't dragging the atmosphere along. In fact, gravity is just preventing the atmosphere from escaping into space. The thing that's dragging the atmosphere along is in fact friction. Do an experiment, tape a ball to a drill, spin it, and feel if the air moves around the ball. That's the exact same thing that happens on the Earth, just on a larger scale. Debunking Eric Dubay's proof number 24.
If Earth and its atmosphere were constantly spinning eastwards over 1,000 miles per hour, then north and south-facing cannons should establish a control, while east-firing cannonballs should fall significantly farther than all others, while west-firing cannonballs should fall significantly closer.
This, once again, is just completely incorrect. Go on a train, take a kid's toy gun, shoot the toy gun in the direction the train is moving and against the direction the train is moving, and you'll find they travel the same distance with reference to where you are standing. That's what happens on the Earth. So tonight we'll be taking a look at Eric Dubay. I'm going to continue his 200 proofs video. There's still quite a lot that I need to get through on that one. I finished one of my shorts off on proof number 24, which was Eric trying to say that cannonballs firing north-south should be controlled, whereas east-west firing cannonballs would have different distances that the cannonball traveled. Yeah, so let's get into this. So this is the cannonballs one. This, once again, is just a variation on the cannonball one. Throughout this video, Eric really does repeat himself a lot. He just uses different words. The planes, once again, not traveling free from the Earth's motion. They still have momentum imparted to them, which contributes to their motion. So it's not as if the plane is standing still and the Earth rotating around, underneath it. So that's once again where Eric is wrong. Yeah, if anybody in chat would like to add anything, if I missed anything, please, yeah, please just say something, and I'll be taking a look at chat throughout this whole video. I'm not sure who this author is, but if flying was invented in the time of Copernicus, I'm pretty sure that Copernicus would have gotten to the same conclusions. The shape of the Earth has nothing to do with any form of travel, for that matter. Um, yeah, so Eric Dubay just likes to quote people who's irrelevant to any point he's trying to make. If anybody in chat knows who this author is, please do tell me. As I said, I've never heard of her, but I'm just quickly going to see if I can find her. Gabrielle Henriette. I'm just going to listen to the rest of this. Listening to the rest of this, I can already tell you that the author has nothing to do with this. It's once again just a repeat of proof 25 and 24. So, like I said, Eric just likes to repeat himself. There's nothing new he's adding to any of his content. He's just saying either the cannonball needs to go farther, planes should catch each other, and now planes should fly faster than we say they fly, which is all just relevant motion to the Earth. I quickly searched for this Gabrielle Henriette person, and guess what? The book she authored, Heaven and Earth, is actually just some more flat Earth propaganda. The tagline for this book is The Solid Vault of Heaven, with an image of the flat Earth and a dome. So, like everybody Eric likes to quote, just another flat earther. Thanks, chat. I'll quickly check on that. I see there's no audio coming from the video. Let me just fix that quickly.
So that an aircraft flying at this
Are
rate
you
in the
hearing
same
the audio
direction as
now?
that of the rotation could not cover any ground at all. It would remain suspended in mid-air over the spot from which it took off, since both speeds are equal. 27. If Earth and its atmosphere were constantly spinning eastwards over 1,000 miles per hour, landing airplanes on such fast-moving runways which face
Once again, 26 like 25, 27 like 26 like 25 like 24, all the same proof. He's just rewording with his famous word salad. The plane is not moving independently of the Earth's motion, thus the runway is not speeding towards the plane. What's happening is the plane, with its momentum, like I said, in the Earth's atmosphere, is just flying. So relative to the plane, the Earth might as well be standing still. But, like I've said in many of my videos, constant motion, which is what the Earth is, can't be felt. And I'm thinking that's where Eric and all of the Flurf gang seem to miss the whole point, because they want to be able to prove everything with their senses.
All manner of directions, north, south, east, west, and otherwise, would be practically impossible. Yet in reality, such fictional concerns are completely negligible. 28. If the Earth and its atmosphere were constantly spinning eastwards over 1,000 miles per hour, then clouds, wind, and weather patterns could not casually and unpredictably go every which way, with clouds often traveling in opposing directions at varying altitudes.
This is not exactly the same as the previous, I think, four, but it still comes down to the same concept. Eric wants the clouds to stand still and the Earth to rotate extremely fast past the clouds. And like I showed in that first 10 minutes where everybody was waiting for the video to start, that video actually shows the Earth moving in real time. That's how fast the Earth is rotating. And Eric doesn't seem to grasp that. He thinks 1,000 miles per hour at the equator means the same as sitting in your car driving at 1,000 miles per hour. He wants to see that type of speed. Now, I'm not sure how Eric thinks the rest of the solar system works, but he has quoted and misquoted some of the speeds, like the 666 or 66,600 miles per hour, and he likes to reference back to like the 666. But in reality, he just misrepresents the numbers because it's not 66,600, it's like 67,000 and stuff like that. So Eric likes to misrepresent. Doing this, probably a grift, but if there's people gullible enough to believe this, there's always going to be people like us who wants to put an end to this. Now, Eric, I'm not sure if you'll ever see this video, but just grasp the concept of constant motion, please.
Simultaneously. 29. If the Earth and its atmosphere were constantly spinning eastwards over 1,000 miles per hour, this should somewhere, somehow, be seen, heard, felt, or measured by someone, yet no one in history has ever experienced this alleged eastward motion.
Like I said, Eric wants to experience everything with his senses. I think if you take Eric to the moon and show him the Earth from there, he would just say that you tricked him or hypnotized him or whatever his excuse might be then. So this might be a useless effort to try and reason with him, but let's see, maybe we get somewhere.
Meanwhile, however, we can hear, feel, and experimentally measure even the slightest westward breeze. 30. In his book South Sea Voyages, Arctic and Antarctic explorer Sir James Clark Ross described his experience on the night of November 27, 1839, and his conclusion that the Earth must be motionless. Quote, "The sky being very clear, it enabled us to observe the higher stratum of clouds to be moving in an exactly opposite direction to that of the wind, a circumstance which is frequently recorded in our meteorological journal, both in the northeast and southeast trades, and has also often been observed by former voyagers. Captain Basil Hall witnessed it from the summits of the Peak of Tenerife."
Eric likes to just give irrelevant historic quotes. Can't blame him. It's the only proof that he's ever finding of flat Earth, because no respectable anybody will have a proof of a flat Earth. Now, if you're in the middle of the ocean with no clouds above you, and you see clouds moving in the upper atmosphere, the clouds aren't moving because of the Earth's rotation. The clouds are moving due to different air streams and wind currents, and I don't have a degree in meteorology, but that's the basics of it. And those winds are independent of the Earth's motion. Now we do get the Coriolis effect with large storm clouds
which is a different phenomenon, but that's because of the Earth's rotation.
And Count Strzelecki, on ascending the volcanic mountain of Kirinea in Hawaii, reached at 4,000 feet an elevation above that of the trade wind, and experienced the influence of an opposite current of air of a different hydrometric and thermometric condition. Count Strzelecki further informed me of the following seemingly anomalous circumstance: that at the height of 6,000 feet he found the current of air blowing at right angles to both the lower strata, also of a differing hydrometric and thermometric condition, but warmer than the inner stratum. Such a state of the atmosphere is compatible only with the fact which other evidence has demonstrated, that the earth is at rest. 31. Quoting Zetetic Cosmogony, Thomas Winship states, "Let imagination picture to the mind what force air would have, which would..."
Let's first start with this meme that he's posted here. Now, Simon Dan did an excellent video on this, I think 2 or 3 weeks back, which proves why the bottom image, where the Earth is rotating at 1,000 miles per hour, is possible. And whereas when you're on a roller coaster or a merry-go-round, you actually feel it. And once again, that reason is constant motion. Getting to his point, it's probably going to get back to the same points, either going to be historical figures or Earth spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, so something must go faster than that if it's moving on the Earth, which is what I'm deducing from the image. But let's listen to him.
Was set in motion by a spherical body of 8,000 miles in diameter, which in 1 hour was spinning round 1,000 miles per hour, rushing through space at 65,000 miles per hour, and gyrating across the heavens. Then let conjecture endeavor to discover whether the inhabitants on such a globe could keep their hair on. If the earth globe rotates on its axis at the terrific rate of 1,000 miles an hour,
like I called it, is just going to come back to must be rotating fast, so probably winds must be fast.
such an immense mass would of necessity cause a tremendous rush of wind in the space it occupied. The wind would go all one way, and anything like clouds which got caught within the sphere of influence of the rotating sphere would have to go the same way. The fact that the earth is at rest is proved by kite flying. 32.
I think he wants there to be 1,000 mile per hour wind as the Earth rotates, because Eric wants the atmosphere to be independent of the Earth, which is not possible because that's not reality. The wind that we feel is not due to rotation. Why? Because the atmosphere actually rotates with the Earth. So we don't feel the wind of 1,000 miles per hour. Imagine what hectic world that would be, having to live every day in extreme winds.
If gravity is credited with being a force strong enough to hold the world's oceans, buildings, people, and atmosphere stuck to the surface of a rapidly spinning ball, then it is impossible for gravity to also simultaneously be weak enough to allow little birds, bugs, and planes to take off and travel freely, unabated in any direction.
Okay, I've said this quite a few times. Not necessarily to Eric, but I'm pretty sure I've said it to him as well. Gravity is not very strong. It's in fact the weakest of the four fundamental forces. So gravitational force is dependent on the mass of an object. The lower the mass, the weaker the force. On the points of planes taking off, yes, planes weigh a lot, but they've got something called lift, which is a force that opposes gravity, and it works against gravity to make the plane actually fly. Couple that with the speeds that planes fly at, it's easy to overcome gravity. I think I said it in one of my previous videos. It's easy to pick up a pencil, but it's quite difficult to pick up a mountain. And that's the point I'm trying to make. The larger the mass, the more difficult to pick up the object.
33. If gravity is credited with being a force strong enough to curve the massive expanse of ocean.
Here we go again. Eric's going to repeat a proof, because here we go with gravity pulling the ocean towards the center of the Earth. But maybe he surprises us with this one.
Around a globular Earth, it would be impossible for fish and other creatures to swim through such forcefully held water. 34.
Yeah, with 33, I'm just go and see the 32 comment, because it's the same thing. It's gravity, gravitational force at least, is directly proportional to mass. And the lighter the mass, the less the force. The ocean weighs a lot. Think about this. For every liter of water is a kilogram in terms of mass. I'm not sure how many liters of water there is in the ocean, but it's quite a lot.
Ship captains in navigating great distances at sea never need to factor the supposed curvature of the Earth into their calculations. Both plain
Anderson, I like your idea about the t-shirt, and I think we can just go on a street corner and hand out t-shirts saying I'm smarter than a flat earther. It's not actually a competition at this stage. And hi, Scooter Magoo. Yeah, nice to see you in chat.
sailing and great circle sailing, the world's most popular navigation methods, use plane, not spherical trigonometry, making all mathematical calculations on the assumption that the Earth.
I'm just going to go a bit back on this one because I missed a bit, but spherical trigonometry in terms of the Earth, if you go down to a small enough scale, becomes trigonometry on a plane, because that's just how big the Earth is. If you, for instance, draw a triangle, let's say 10 meters each side, that would form 60 degrees interior angles. But if you go over a large enough distance and you form a triangle, that would technically be a triangle with 90-degree interior angles. That's the type of spherical trigonometry that Eric probably have never heard of.
World's most popular navigation method are the supposed curvature of the held water. 34. Ship captains in navigating great distances at sea never need to factor the supposed curvature of the Earth into their calculations. Both plain sailing and great circle sailing, the world's most popular navigation method.
Just want to get to that great circle sailing. On a flat Earth, that would not be possible at all. On a flat Earth, it would, if you want to sail around a great circle, you'll have to maneuver around quite a large distance. If you look at the southern hemisphere, some of the great circles are quite small on a sphere, and then if you project that onto the flat Earth map, the distances become quite enormous. And that's the point that everybody is always trying to make. Yes, you might be able to circumnavigate the world on a flat Earth, but if you go and time it versus what the times actually are, it's not the same. Therefore, it can't be flat.
Use plane, not spherical trigonometry, making all mathematical calculations on the assumption that the Earth is perfectly flat. If the Earth were in fact a sphere, such an errant assumption would lead to constant glaring inaccuracies. Plain sailing has worked perfectly fine in both theory and practice for thousands of years, however, and plane trigonometry has time and again proven more accurate than spherical trigonometry in determining distances across.
The reason that you might think that plane trigonometry versus spherical trigonometry will give will be more accurate is because you have a very one-dimensional level of thinking. I'm not even gonna say two-dimensional, because then let's just stay with one-dimensional. Whereas if you would have taken the time and effort to just Google, Google's a great thing if you can use it, then you'd find out that spherical trigonometry is actually more accurate on this planet of us that's actually a sphere. And that's why spherical trigonometry is more accurate.
Across the oceans. 35. If the Earth were truly a globe, then every line of latitude south of the equator would have to measure a gradually smaller and smaller circumference the farther south traveled. If, however, the Earth is an extended plane, then every line of latitude south of the equator should measure a gradually larger and larger circumference the farther south traveled.
Yes, I agree with that. If the Earth is flat, if you go further south, if you want to circumnavigate it, you'll have to go further than you would on the opposite side of the Earth. So let's say on the 10-degree latitude line, south and north, is the same distance on a sphere, whereas on a plane, it's, well, look at that map. 10 degrees would be, let's say, this circle down here, whereas 10 degrees up would be the circle in the middle, whereas 10 degrees would be the circle all the way on the outside of the map. And that's not logical, is it?
The fact that many captains navigating south of the equator, assuming the globular theory, have found themselves drastically out of reckoning, more so the farther south traveled, testifies to the fact that the Earth is
I would love to meet this captain or captains that you mention here, because I'm pretty sure, like Mark Sargent with his questions for a scientist, you're making this up. There's a race, I did a short on this. There's a race every year circumnavigating Antarctica. And the distances they travel, along with the speed and the time it takes, does not at all correlate with the flat Earth. The time and the distances correlate perfectly with the spherical Earth. And just another point on Antarctica. Let's say you sail against the ice wall on your left-hand side and you continue due east. Due west, sorry. And there would come a point where you'd start to have to turn left to continue around Antarctica. Whereas on a flat Earth, once again, due west, Antarctica on your left-hand side, there would be a time where if you have not corrected to the right-hand side, you'd sail into Antarctica. And that, once again, is not what happens in reality.
not a ball. 36. During Captain James Clark Ross's voyages around the Antarctic circumference, he often wrote in his journal, perplexed at how they routinely found themselves out of accordance with their charts, stating that they found themselves an average of 12 to 16 miles outside their reckoning every day. Later on, further south, as
I once again would like to see whomever you got this information from. And once again, in the 1800s, they did not have the technology we have today to map the Earth with. If you look at this path that this person has followed and you map that on a globe, it would be less than a quarter of this distance.
much as 29 miles. 37. Lieutenant Charles Wilkes commanded a United States Navy exploration expedition to the Antarctic from 1838 to 1842, and in his journals also mentioned being consistently east of his reckoning, sometimes over 20 miles in less than 18 hours.
Like I said, if Eric continues to repeat his proofs, we can rename this video to Eric Dubay's 10 Lies About the Flat Earth. Once again, I'd like to see the exact course that this person took, and then I would like to see what Eric did to calculate these values and make sure that they actually correlate with the Earth. And then just on the point of this meme or image, I wouldn't even dare to call it a meme. Sea level, once again, is not sea level because it's flat. Sea level is the altitude at which the water of the ocean sits. So if you are 10 meters above sea level, that means from the ocean where it's at rest, 10 meters up, that's where you are. Now, around a globe, that means 10 meters curved around it. It does not mean 10 meters straight out flat as a pancake.
38. To quote Reverend Thomas Milner, "In the southern hemisphere, navigators to India have often fancied themselves east of the Cape when still west, and have been driven ashore on the African coast, which, according to their reckoning, lay behind them. This misfortune happened to a fine frigate, the Challenger, in 1845. How came Her Majesty's ship Conqueror to be lost? How have so many other noble..."
Nothing against the Reverend, but quoting a Reverend on the matter of flat Earth, where he has not even actually mentioned anything about the shape of the Earth. He had just asked a question about why do people get lost at sea. And once again, it's quite a while back. I'm actually surprised that anybody found their way across oceans way back when, but it happens. Living in South Africa, the largest port from England to India was right here in our own little country, Cape Town. And quite a lot of people stopped here. That does not mean the Earth is flat, because if the Earth was flat, that would not make sense to travel all the way down to go all the way up. It would then rather make sense to go through the North Pole, or maybe through other means than having to sail around the southern point of Africa.
Vessels, perfectly sound, perfectly manned, perfectly navigated, been wrecked in calm weather, not only in dark night or in a fog, but in broad daylight and sunshine, in the former case upon the coasts, in the latter upon sunken rocks, from being out of reckoning. The simple answer is that Earth is not a ball. 30.
That simple answer, once again, I'm pretty sure does not come from whomever did this quote. That simple answer comes from you, Eric. Just taking a quote and then making whatever conclusion you would like to make from that quote.
39. Practical distance measurements taken from the Australian Handbook, Almanac Shippers and Importers Directory state that the straight line distance between Sydney and Nelson is 1,550 statute miles.
Okay, so the distance in Australia is 1,500 statute miles. Let's see what the conversion of statute miles to kilometers is. Statute miles to kilometers, because I do not recognize that. Okay, so the mile, sometimes the international mile, statute mile, to distinguish it from other miles, is a British imperial unit and United States customary unit of distance. So statute mile is a mile. So according to that, it's about 2,400 kilometers away. Now, the two cities in Australia, Sydney and Nelson, let's see how far they are. Because I'm doing this debunking blind, so I've not looked at any of Eric's any of the rest of this video at all. So let's see. So Sydney to Nelson, Australia. Distance. Okay, so according to Google, it's 50 kilometers. So that's a gross overestimation from 50 to 2,500. So let's hear what Eric says.
Their given difference in longitude is 22 degrees, 2 minutes, and 14 seconds. Therefore, if 22 degrees, 2 minutes, and 14 seconds out of 360 is 1,550 miles, the entirety would measure 25,182 miles. This is not only larger than the ball Earth is said to be at the equator.
So this distance is larger than we actually say Earth is. You have to stop and think for yourself that this does not make sense at all. So there's formula that you can use to calculate distance between latitude and longitude. Once again, Simon Dan sent a few flat earthers this question to answer, and he's got a video on his channel to show you the exact calculations. But resorting to historical sources where accuracies on global scales weren't that great is not a proof of a flat earth. It's rather a proof of how far we've come with our technologies to the modern day.
But a whole 4,262 miles greater than it would be at Sydney's southern latitude on a globe of said proportions. 40. From near Cape Horn, Chile, to Port Phillip in Melbourne, Australia, the distance is 10,500 miles, or 143 degrees of longitude away. Factoring in the remaining degrees to 360 makes for a total distance of 26,430 miles around this particular latitude, which is over 1,500 miles wider than Earth is supposed to be at the equator, and many more thousands of miles wider than it is supposed to be at such southern latitudes. 41. Similar calculations made from the Cape of Good Hope, South Africa, to Melbourne, Australia.
So 41, 40, 39, all of them the same type of proof. And once again, just Eric shows there's no modern proofs of flat Earth, only historical quotes that he can use. And other than that, like I said, the Earth's not flat. I think we'll leave it at number 41 for tonight. Let's see what chat says. Chat says, I reckon someone likes their new word. I'm not sure what this reference is to, blatant. And then Mark D says, how can semi-intelligent being think that this sea level nonsense is an actual argument for anything is beyond me? I fully agree with this. Sea level, I think we should rename this whole term because flat earthers really get confused. Like CC as well. These level words, I'm going to use his famous quote for this. I'm confused. I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. And that's a direct quote from CC. So Binnen Urlaub, I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing that name, but says, are there no recent discoveries of flat Earth scientists? So the most recent discoveries that was from the flat Earth community, first of all, was Bob, and we all know Bob proved something very different than he would have liked. And then we have, of course, Jeranism with his interesting discovery, both of which does not prove the Earth is flat. In fact, they prove the opposite. Pedro said, yes, wishing you many more subs. Good show. Thanks, Pedro. Yes, yeah, like I said, the channel grew a lot faster than I initially thought it would. I'm grateful to each and every one of you. There's more content to come from my side. And yeah, let's keep up the good work. Let's try and rid the world of flat earthers. Yeah, rest in peace, Bob. Yeah, thanks to him, we do know the earth is rotating. Yeah, let's end it there for tonight. I think we can, yeah, we will maybe do this once a month. As soon as my memberships are sorted out, there might be membership live streams and everything. But thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't yet. I really appreciate everybody and all the positive comments and support that's been coming my way. There is, of course, a few flat earthers who doesn't like what I'm doing, and they try their nonsense, but water off a duck's back doesn't bother me at all. Like all of you know, I'm Heinrich. I'm the real nuclear physicist. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.